Okay, this is a tutorial for alerts. In this video, I'm going to be covering all the types of alerts you can use. We're going to be going over single alerts, multiple alerts, dynamic alerts, alerts in a screener, and strategy alerts. So, the first type of alert is the alert condition. This is the one most of you guys might be familiar with because it's the oldest one. And the syntax for this one, down here we have alert condition. You just put a condition in it, and that's the only required argument you need to use, but you can also give it a title and a message, and it doesn't return anything. So I have these arguments listed out. For the required argument, the type needs to be a series. Now that could be a series bool, it could also be a series integer, series float. It doesn't actually say, it just says series. And for the title, you need a constant string, and for the message, it needs to be a constant string, because if you're making an alert, you might want your text to be dynamic. You might want to change it based on the type of condition that you have, and based on this right here, you can't do that. Now if you look at the typecasting rules, constant string is right here. So you can have a literal string, which is what you type out, and then constant string, and then you have your input string, and they all boil down to strings, and then we have series string. So series string would represent a dynamic string that would change as the code executes. And since that's below constant string, you'll get an error if you try to use a dynamic string. I'm getting a little ahead of myself though. So if you want to make an alert, you have this alert condition, and I'm just using true here as my series. I know it doesn't look like a series, but this boolean will, as each time it executes, it will turn into a series boolean in the compiler. And then I'm giving it a optional title, alert condition 1, and a message, always true, because this will always be true. And just setting this alone won't do anything. So here, if I save this script, I already have it added to the chart under alert study right here. And notice nothing is happening here, just NA. I haven't plot NA down at the bottom down here. But this alert condition 1, will actually, so we go to create alert, and we come to the condition, and then this is the name of our study called alert study, and then we get this drop down here, and since I only have one alert condition, it's right here. It's the title I gave it, alert condition 1, and these are all the built-in alerts. They're always there. So we have that, and then the message is input into this dialog box here automatically, and you can give it a name. This is just a generic name that would come over here. And you have options. You can set it to only go off once. So since it's set to true, if I set this right now and it's only once, then it's the next time we get a tick right here, because it's a real-time bar, it'll go off and it'll only go off once. If we do, and it won't ever go off again. If we do once per bar, it'll do the same thing, but it'll go off on each successive bar. And once per bar close, since it's always true, it'll be true right now, but it won't go off until this bar closes. So we'll have to wait. We're on the 1 minute time frame, so we'll have to wait 1 minute. And once per minute, well, I'm already on the 1 minute time frame, so that should be self-explanatory. So if you still don't understand these, I just recommend you just go through each one of these and kind of test it out. And they even give you kind of hot tips here. Typically, you'll want to use once per bar close, because that will help you avoid repainting issues. So you set it to that. It'll come up over here, and this should go off here in the next, well, when this candle closes. So I'm on the 1 minute time frame. Now with the alert condition, this message here, you actually, now there's the alert going to my email. If you notice down here, this question mark, you can actually set certain placeholders. And if you read through this, there's a whole bunch of information on how to do that. Now, I'm not going to do that here because there's a second method that we can use, and it's the newest method, and it's actually the recommended method, because with this alert condition, if we use this takes up an additional plot output, and it must be global. So I can't put this alert condition in a function or even in an if block. So if true, something like that, I can't do this. This is going to be an error. Cannot use alert condition in local scope. See? So that's not good for me. It needs to always be, let me turn this off. It needs to always be out here like that. And then I have to use placeholders to get my dynamic messaging. And it's just messy. And if I want to change the title of something, I can't do this. I can't have, I don't know, a user generated title with the input here. Like that gives me an error. If I want to have two alerts, two separate alerts, I can do this. And now you can come over here, you can do create alert. Come back to your alerts, the name of your study, and then now I have a selection between both the alerts. So that's how you do that. And I won't get into the placeholders because we won't need that. Not anymore, at least. So the second way to do this is the way that I recommend you guys start doing all of your alerts. And this is with the actual new alert function. So now we actually only have two arguments. We have the message that we want to send and the frequency. And the frequency is exactly the same as what we saw in the alert condition in the dialog box, where it said once per bar minute, once per bar close, and only once, except we have these options here. We have alert frequency all, once per bar, and once per bar close. So it's not exactly the same, but you can put these inside of a local scope, and they don't take up a plot. So you can use as many as you want, and you can actually have this message right here is dynamic. So it's a series string. So you can change it according to whatever condition is happening in your chart. So frequency all, every time this alert is executed, it will go off. And you see, opposed to the alert condition, there is no condition. Like this gets executed with the code. So we need to make a condition. If condition, then execute this. Since condition isn't anything, we can just set that to true, right? So if this is true, then set this off. So it'll be true on every single tick, every single bar, and this will go off every single time that this condition is true. But like the alert condition, we actually need to set this alert. And something very important, once you set this alert, that alert will be on that time frame, whatever time frame you're on. And if you go ahead and you change your code, it won't be reflected here. If you change the code, you need to actually go and reset the alert and put it back into the server or create a new alert. So here we have alert study, and then the drop down only gives us any alert function call. And that's how it's always going to be. And notice there's no more selection for once per bar or anything like that. That's all gone. We have an expiration time and all these same alert actions. And then there's no dialog box here, just the alert name. Because the dialog box now is here. And now this should go off as soon as we get a tick here. There we go. 2, 3. Yeah. And then we have once per bar and once per bar close. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Once per bar will just go off one time. In this case, once a minute. If I was in the 5 minute, it'd be once every 5 minutes. If it was always true. And then once per bar close. So if I had an alert right away, it would wait until this bar closed. So those are pretty self-explanatory. The thing with these alerts is if I wanted to use these placeholders, you can't do that. Like this alert will just come up as exactly as it looks. And however, if you do want to print out the close, this is where alerts really shine. You can just do this, you can do close plus, and then you need to make this close because it's a float. Use this function here, toString. Any number you have, you can put toString, and it will automatically convert it to a string. And this will return the close. That won't give me an error, but it just won't print out the way you expect it to. So here we go, alert study, any function call, and this is going to run on every single execution, every single tick. There we go. And it doesn't pop up here. This will actually get sent into, well, in this case, my email. So here we are, close. This is the message right here. And it was converted to the price at that time when that went off. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the third type of alert, which is strategy alerts. Now with strategy alerts, we don't actually need to set the alert function or the alert condition function. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. So here, I actually have a very simple strategy here. I'm just using this function here, this if block, if time is greater than the timestamp, and I set this to today, right? Today is the 19th, sure. And that's just to make sure that the strategy doesn't come into effect until today. Because if you look at this, strategy is just going long when the bar index is the modulus of 2 equals 0. So every other bar is just going to go long automatically. There's no strategy here. It's just going to go long on every even bar. And then it's going to close that long on every odd bar. That's it. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So because of that's just going to trade so much, I had to limit this because you only can do 3,000 trades in TradingView in PineScript. So let me save this. And you can see that being executed everywhere here. And it starts here at the beginning of the day. Now, if you look at the code, there's no alerts in here, right? There's no alert message. There is this alert message I wrote out. New strategy position is, and then I actually put this placeholder here. So it's actually going to be here and here for both of these. So I'll go ahead and I'll create an alert for this. And I select strategy alerts because that's the name of this function. And if you come down here, this is the actual message that will be printed out. So we need to make sure that this is going to say what we want it to say. So by default, it just comes up with this every time, strategy alerts, order. And we have, only when we're using strategies can we use these special placeholders that are prepended with strategy dot. You can use these with the alert condition in the studies as well. You can use like close and time and stuff. But we don't need to do that because we have the alert function without the condition, which is much, much easier to use. But here, we can actually see the order action. We can see how many contracts that is in our strategy and all these other things. So if I set this like this, it's going to convert those values to whatever they are. So here we go. We have an alert here, order buy at 1, filled on the ticker, new strategy position is 1. And if you look here, this is order action, buy at order contracts 1, filled on ticker, which is BTC USD, new strategy position is 1. If you noticed, if you're paying attention, this didn't come up here. New strategy position is, that did not happen. So in order to get that to show, you need to use this placeholder. I believe it is strategy dot alert message. Click this here and I can double check. And you have this list, all the placeholders, position size, action, contracts, price, order ID, comment. That's not the one. It's this one, strategy order dot alert message. And the comment is actually, if you look over here, you can see comment, ID, when. Comment is the third argument that you can set, and that's what would come up if you use this one. But we'll just use the alert message, and it's not what I copied. Luckily, I remember what it is, strategy.order alert message, right? We save this. Don't worry about those warnings. And boom. But notice how this placeholder did not convert. This one. I just wrote that one wrong here. But this one right here, strategy.position size, that's an actual placeholder. And it did not convert because it won't convert inside here. It only converts if you put it in the dialog box. So, how do you do dynamic messages In here, well, you would do it like this. New strategy position is, and we'll do this, we'll do plus, toString, and then strategy dot position size. Get out of here. And that will essentially do the same thing, because this variable here is built-in variable. A series float will return the actual position size that we're at, and that will get passed on to this, and it won't update until this entry takes place. So in this case, this alert message will actually have the wrong position size. Once we have this entry, then it won't show that our position size was updated until the next loop. So for this example, this wouldn't be what you would want to do. But that's how you would concatenate a string to a float for the position size. I gotta edit this. So alert message, save, and let's see. I updated the code, but the alert I didn't create a new alert, so it's gonna be like that every time. Why is it not working? Well, like I said in the beginning, you need, every time you change the code, you need to create a new alert. Here we go, and then make sure that you add in order alert message. And that's only if you want to use the alert message in this strategy. You don't need to use it. And now look at this. See what I'm saying? So here we just got a cell, and it says new strategy position is 0, and then this message here says 1. So they're not synchronized, and that comes down to the way that these orders are being executed, and that's why I said that this is not the correct way to show this type of thing. But this isn't about how to correctly code strategies. This is how to set up your alerts with strategies, with studies, with the alert condition, and with alerts. If you want to learn how to program your strategies, that's a completely different lesson. All right, so let's look at setting up multiple alerts. Let's look at, this is what I would do actually. So here's this mini little screener that I built. It's very basic, very simple, but it's just to show you how to set up an alert. The whole purpose of this was like, I have a strategy, I want to test it across Bitcoin, I want to test it across Litecoin, I want to test it across all kinds of securities. Now, in TradingView, the current way to do that would be to come over here to Bitcoin, create an alert, set it up, then switch to something else, go to Litecoin, or whatever you want to do. You know, come to that chart, create a new alert, go to the next chart, create a new alert. You get the point. You have to create an alert for every single security that you're on. Or you could do it this way. So here we go. I have just 3 inputs here, and I'm using the type input symbol, which allows me to select just like this in my chart. So let me show you what that looks like. Let's get rid of that, and let's get rid of this one too. So don't worry about the other stuff right now. So when I hit the settings here, it pops up the interface, and these are the 3 inputs that I'm talking about. And automatically I just put in BTC USD, AUD USD, and AMC as the default values. So if you look at this, they're being reflected right here. Now I can click on this, and it brings that symbol chart right up, which is awesome, because now I can select whatever symbol I want. It doesn't have to be BTC USD. It doesn't have to be even crypto. It can be whatever. Anything in TradingView that you have access to, you can select, right? And there we go. So that's that. That's these 3 inputs here, which allows me to select those. And then down here, this is important. I built my strategy and I put it inside of a function. Now you'll see why I did this. So I just have a very basic strategy here. I have your basic SMA slow and SMA fast, crossover, cross under here. Get rid of that. So here we have a fast crossover. We want to go long. when we have a fast cross under, we want to go short. And I have this signal, so when it says go long, when there's a crossover, it will return a 1. That's my buy signal. When it says go short, it will return a -1. That's my sell signal. And if it's not saying either of those things, then it's just going to return a 0, which is just neutral. So we can see that here, this blue line here actually represents those signals for each of these strategies. And down here, well, in this screener here, I'm returning the signal. Don't worry about all this code yet. I'm just returning the signal at the bottom. I'm doing all this other stuff. I'm calling the strategy. I'm calling the strategy in here, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. I'll explain this logic. But it's returning the signal. It's returning this into this screener. I'm catching it here. And at the end, it's returning it here because I want to debug this when I'm making this. So I'm calling the screener with input T1 right here and input T2 and input T3. So I'm calling this function for each one of these inputs right here, and I'm just returning the signal. I'm storing it in this so I can plot it. And then I gave these plots a title, T1 signal, T2 signal, T3 signal. And this is strictly for debugging purposes. So let me save that. We'll get a different output over here, right? Okay, they're all 0, right? Because we haven't got any crossovers. And if you come over here, there's a data window. We can pop up the signals. We can see them better. So you can see the signal values here, here, and here, and down here in this window. You can set it up a bunch of different ways to debug and just kind of see how the signals are working. So what are we on? We're on Bitstamp BTC USD, and we got a signal for BTC USD. You can see it goes a 1 here. Now I could make these blue lines different colors for each security that we're looking at. It would make it a little bit easier, color code them. But let's go to BTC USD, right? And let's check that. Well, I probably need to plot these things as well, right? So let me copy these, drop them down here, and then just plot them. All right. So the fast SMA is red, slow SMA is green. And we want this to overlay true so we can see it on the chart. Got to exit that out and re-add that to the chart. There we go. Now, since I overlay on the chart, I don't have the window pane down here anymore. But look, when I come right here, if you look in the data window to the right, you can see T1 signal is a 1. And that aligns right where we get a crossover. So here we have the BTC USD, and then we're looking at AUD USD, which is the Forex pair. And since I lost that lower pane, now it's giving me a pane. I can't see any. I had to look at my data window. I mean, I could switch to the AUD USD. Spell it. Forex. Right, we got a crossover here. And look, we get a -1. Now where here, I have a 1 here because it's actually calling Bitcoin. This is the Bitcoin signal. And then here is the Aussie signal. I don't need to be on the chart for this to work. That's the best part about it. Okay, and then if there's a signal on AMC, that would also show up no matter what chart I'm on. And how's that happening? So in the screener here, this is where the magic happens. So at the top, I just set this message variable to an empty string because I want to be using it later on. This is going to be my dynamic alert message. And this is where the magic happens, right here. We use this function called security, and we pass it the ticker we want, which will be one of these, right? We give it this built-in variable, which will always return the value of the time frame we're on. So I'm on the 1 minute, so that will automatically convert to 1 minute. You can set it to whatever you want. You know, if you want, you could put daily, weekly, monthly if you want, but I just do it on the time frame that I'm on. And then here, this is a nice little trick. I can actually use these parentheses here to return a tuple of values. So in this, I'm returning the strategy function, and this is why I put this strategy in a function, because the only way to pass this strategy to another security is by putting it in a function. So now this function is going to run on this chart, it's going to run on Bitcoin, and it's going to run on AMC. Then those values, whatever the value that it returns, whatever that value is for that chart, it'll be returned over here into this. And it doesn't need to be named the same name. I just did that. I could name this whatever I want, right? And then also I'm returning the close. And I have close here. If I wanted to, I could return the open, the high, and whatever else I wanted. But I would need to respectively put those values here too. I can call them whatever I wanted. O, OP, and then high. Like, it doesn't matter. Right? So based on my strategy logic, I have a 1, -1, or 0. So I put in some if blocks here. If the signal is equal to 1, it's a buy, then I'm going to change my message, this variable, buy plus whatever the ticker is. And the ticker, like we said, is this input up here. That's going to be a string plus, and then I'm using this string at plus toString, and we're using the ticker close. Now, I can't put close here because that'll return the close of the current chart that I set this up at. That's why I'm returning the close here. And then if it's a sell signal, it does the same thing. So it doesn't really change too much. It just says sell here instead of buy. And now, if the signal is equal to a 1 or the signal is equal to a -1, then I want to set an alert with a message that was concatenated over here, whichever one. And then the alert frequency I'm setting to once per bar close. And like I said, I'm just returning the signal. So I don't need to do that. Well, I do in this case because it's returning something. But I don't need to do that if I wasn't trying to debug this. And this alert will only go off if we have a buy or a sell. This alert won't go off if there's no buy or sell signal, right? And down here, like, I built these functions, right? But they're not going to work until I call them. So that's pretty important. So I have fscreener, and I have input T1, which is up here, which is going to automatically be BTC USD. That's going to get passed. It's going to be this argument right here. It's going to get passed into this security function. It's going to get passed into this string here, and also this string. But only one of these strings will be passed down to the alert message based on if it's a buy or if it's a sell. Because this is an if signal equals 1, else if signal equals 1. So it's going to be either or. It can't be both of these. So we'll get that for BTC USD. It's going to plot it for debug purposes. Then we'll run the function again, but we'll pass it a different argument, which will be IT2, which is going to be AUD USD. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to come in, that IT2 will be coming in here. It'll be passed to this, passed to here, and so forth, right? And we're going to pass this strategy here to AUD USD through the security function. It's going to run it. It's going to say buy or sell, and then this message will be plotted here, and so forth. So enough talking about it. I'd say let's see it, but I'm going to be waiting here for a while for a cross to happen because the FX markets are closed. This is why we love Bitcoin, because it never closes. Right? So it looks like there's going to be a cross in a while. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure this is working. So I'm going to go back to my strategy, and I'm just going to make go long is equal to true. And the reason I'm using this syntax here because I'm reassigning this value. If I do this, I'll get an error. So if I'm reassigning a value, then I have to use that. And I'm just setting it to true. So now this will always be returning a 1. We'll always be getting a 1 here, right? And we know it's going to say buy and whatever the string comes out to be. For BTC USD, AUD USD, and AMC. And guess what? We're going to get 3 alerts every single time that's true. I mean, if, in this case we will, because it'll be true for every single strategy here. If only BTC had a cross, then we'll only get 1 alert. But in this case, we're going to get 3 alerts, which is awesome. Like, I just made 3 alerts out of setting 1 alert. Now, like anything else, I need to actually set this strategy. Create alert. And let's go over here, multiple alerts. And this is alert function any call. So that's it. We just set that up, create, and it goes off instantaneously, right? How do we set this up? We set it with once per bar close. Okay, so not instantaneously. We have to wait for this 1 minute bar to close and open up the next one. Boom. And since it's true for every strategy, in this case, we just got 3 alerts for each one. Buy Bitstamp BTC USD at 58,640. Buy BATS AMC at 1384. Buy FX AUD USD at 0.77374. Buy Bitstamp BTC ticker plus at 2-string ticker close. And there we go. And of course, you can modify this and you can add in a bunch of other different inputs for all the charts that you want to watch, and you can have your strategy in here set up similar to this, and you can watch all the charts you want with 1 alert.